Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. This is David Hyman, your tour guide in Israel. Today's tour is to the National Park Beit Shearim. So join me on this wonderful tour, everyone. To get here, take road 722 just north of Yokneam, and then look for the sign that says Beit Shearim. The road will take you through a residential area. This is part of a small town called Tiv'on, and eventually you'll reach the signs that lead you to the entrance to the national park. In 2015, Beit Shearim was added to the prestigious list of World Heritage Sites by UNESCO. The Necropolis of Beit Shearim, a landmark of Jewish renewal. The village was on the hill, and because one of the most prominent leaders, sages of the Jewish people, was buried here, Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi, therefore this became like the national cemetery for Jewish people, not only Galilee but all over the world, for 200 to 300 years, from the 2nd century until around the 5th century. The first site to visit in Beit Shearim is completely free. This is even before you enter the national park gate. There isn't a official parking lot, and even the sign is a little run down. But as you can see, the sign here, it says synagogue. There isn't much left. Large square structure with 2 rows of columns, an entrance. Probably there was more than one entrance into the building. This was the synagogue of the city of Beit Shearim. The community here were a community of Galileans, or they built their synagogue in the direction of Jerusalem facing south. And there's one more site that you can visit for free without paying admission. You can come outside the opening hours, because these 2 places are both outside the gate of the national park. So the synagogue where we were, and over here you can see the olive press and a little piece of the gate to the city. Maybe one of the 2 gates that the city is named after. The name of the town is Beit Shearim. Also could be spelled Beit Shearim, the city of the 2 gates. Crushing wheel. There would be a second wheel on top of this that would spin, and you put the olives in there and they crush them. When the crushed olives are ready, you place them on the press. There's a step, and from here you enter into the city perimeter. So the town of Beit Shearim, or Beit Shearim, the town of the gates, is not mentioned in the Bible. It's first mentioned in the writings of Josephus. This was the resident town of the president of the Sanhedrin, Rabbi Yehudah HaNassi, the greatest rabbi of the 2nd century, famous for collecting all the oral law and gathering it in the book that we call the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehudah HaNassi lives here, and the Sanhedrin gather here because of him, and they probably need a gathering room, or like a parliament, a Knesset if you wish, to have their discussions and to lead the people. Therefore, a building was built. The basilica was most likely the house of the Sanhedrin. You can see a very large building made out of these enormous rocks. 2 rows of columns for a big roof, and enough space for 120 elders. Alexander Zaid, a guard in Israel. Alexander Zaid, Shomer b'Israel. This is the story of Alexander Zaid. He came to Israel as a chalutz, a pioneer part of the second aliyah, the second wave of immigrants. And because of the hostility of their neighbors, they founded a group of guards to protect their property. That group is called Hashomer, the guards. They were based up in Kfar Giladi in the north of Israel. And in the late 1920s, these hills were purchased by the JNF, the Jewish National Fund, and Alexander was placed here to be the guard of these lands. So he would roam around on his horse. He spoke Arabic. He was very friendly with the Bedouins of the region. In 1938, Zaid was called to go down to Kibbutz Alonim, and on the way there he was attacked by a gang of local Bedouins and was murdered, assassinated. He was in his early 50s. When he was wandering these hills and on his horse, he stumbled into a cave with inscriptions in Greek and Hebrew, and he called his friends who were the archaeologists in Jerusalem, and they came, and that's when they found the Necropolis of Beit Shearim. So join me now, we're going to go down to the national park. Rabbi Yehudah HaNassi was the greatest sage of his generation, simply known as Rabbi, and he was the head of the Sanhedrin, the supreme legal and spiritual body of the Jewish people. So here we can see a map of the Sanhedrin that was first in Jerusalem and then migrated to Yavne, up to Usha, Shfaram, and here we are at Beit Shearim. From here it moved to Tzipori and ended in Tiberias. So after Rabbi Yehudah HaNassi, Rabbi chooses to be buried here in the necropolis, in the cemetery of Beit Shearim. Now this place becomes a place of pilgrimage, and all the Judeans, all the Jews, the Galileans want to be buried here, as close as possible to Rabbi Yehudah HaNassi. A list of places where people came to be buried: goldsmiths, physicians, spice merchants, textile merchants, clothes dyers, rabbis, soldiers. So these were the richest Jews who could afford to come all the way here and be buried as close as possible to Rabbi Yehudah HaNassi. So all the burial caves were carved by men in the soft limestone. Many of the caves had an inscription, so we have information on who was buried here. So for example, this was the cave of the Sidonian head of the Jewish community. So all the way in Sidon, up in Lebanon, today's Lebanon, the head of the Jewish community, he asks to be buried here, to be close and be part of the national cemetery of the 2nd, 3rd century. So we can see that there were more than one way of burial. One option was this niche carved in the wall, and they would place the deceased here. Another option is for like a family grave, and then there's another option of placing the deceased in a stone coffin called a sarcophagus. This was very common in the Roman world, not so much in the Jewish world, and it's possible that most of the sarcophagi were used by Jews that came from the diaspora. The deceased and their families, they did not want their caves to be looted and robbed, and therefore they placed curses on their sarcophagi, cursing whoever would touch their bones. But that did not succeed, because every single tomb in the cemetery was robbed, probably in the 8th or 9th century. We know this because the small terracotta oil lamps that the tomb raiders used were found in dozens, and they give a date of when the tombs were robbed. There's the inscription in Greek. See the inscription in Greek? And go inside. Amazing, huh? A little flower. You could assume this was a theater, but actually there is a better guess what this was. We can call this maybe one of the oldest yeshiva in the world. Yeshiva from the word in Hebrew to sit down, yeshiva, to sit down. Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi, when he dies, he has a request. His request is that his students would study Torah at his burial site. And to do that, they build this seating area right on top of Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi's tomb. The cave of Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi. Look, these doors are made out of stone, carved in stone, but you can see how they imitate a wooden door. We can go inside. And here, this would be the tombs, the two tombs of Rabbi Yehudah and his wife. This is the cave, the most impressive one, the most exciting one. This is where all the rich and wealthy Jews from all around the diaspora came to bury their dead, right next door to Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi. Again, we can see the three arches, Roman style. This would be the original one. And inside we have a maze of corridors and sarcophagi, many of them with animals. Look at this, a cow, there's a bird, an eagle. This one says, here they lie, Atio, the daughter of Rabbi Gamliel, son of Nehemiah, who died a virgin at the age of 22, and Ation, the daughter of Rabbi Yehudah, that died at the age of 9 and 6 months. All the wildflowers are in full bloom. You need to come in the winter. February and then maybe until half March. And you get this, anemones in all colors, red, and there's white and blue. So I hope you all enjoyed this tour of Beit Shearim in Galilee region. So if you did, please give me a big thumbs up and please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you'd like to go on our next tour of wonderful Israel. Bye everyone and take care.